All right, guys, welcome into Lettermen Live. I'm Matt Hayes from 97.1 The Fan and Lettermen Row, joined by Austin Ward from Lettermen Row, and you guys may know this cat. His name is Beanie Wells. He played a little football at OSU, and look, we're inching closer to football. I know it may not feel that way for a lot of people, but football is going to be played next Saturday in the Shoe. Fellas, how excited are you?
I mean, I've barely had any time to think about football, Matty. It's just been, this thing has consumed, the Urban Meyer investigation has consumed my life. They had 2 open practices, which were great. I think maybe Beanie, and if you can relate to those players, they're probably thankful that they haven't had to talk to guys like me much this month so they can focus on the task at hand. But, yeah, I'm obviously very ready to talk about football.
I can't wait. I mean, I'm ready to see some football. I'm ready to see some practice and hear about some things. And those guys are. They're excited that they didn't have to go out and talk to media on a regular basis after practices. And those guys, yes, you can sit there and say that, you know, they have some sort of distraction, but for the most part, those guys have been just geared in, locked in, learning football.
Yeah, no doubt. I can't wait, and I know you guys can't wait. I'm sure there's a lot of you guys also that are with us on that. So first, before we get to the football stuff, we got to address the latest with the investigation. Looks like the Board of Trustees are going to meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. Are you guys expecting a quick answer as far as what's going to happen with Urban? Do you think this is going to linger out a little bit?
I don't see any reason why this would take much longer than, you know, be wrapped up Wednesday or Thursday. You know, at this point, the investigation, that should all be in the rearview mirror. They've had a chance now. It was presented to them verbally by the independent panel on Monday, so they've all had a chance to hear what was in that. I think if there was something drastic coming or a smoking gun, some of that stuff might have already leaked out. You know, through our sources, we've heard nothing that would lead me to believe that Urban Meyer is going to be fired. Much of this conversation now has been there's maybe going to be a suspension, and then how long might it last? Might he be able to be cleared and come back right away? Now, by no means is that a guarantee. I'm not sitting here and telling you that is 100% what's going to happen. Nobody knows for sure what's going on behind those doors, what's in Michael Drake's mind, the president there, with that decision. But, Beanie, I mean, I think when I look at it, and you and I have talked about this before, he's either cleared or he's not cleared. I don't think that this is a situation where you can say, oh, maybe it's 2 or 3 games for Urban and then you move on. If he's cleared to be Ohio State's coach, he's going to be Ohio State's coach, and you move on. That's the way I'm seeing it.
And I'm with you, Ward. I mean, there's no reason, if it's found that he obviously didn't do anything, and he came out and said, you know, I kicked it upstairs to my superiors, what are you going to suspend him for at this point? You know, initially, I was one of those guys that, you know, I jumped the gun, and I said, you know, if Urban Meyer knew what was going on and he did nothing, then obviously you have to do something about it. But if, you know, he did what he was supposed to do, and that's what everything and all arrows are pointing to, what are you going to spend him for? You reinstate him as a coach. You throw the distraction out the window. You get back to football. That's what we all want anyways here in Columbus.
That's why you don't go on TMZ, Beanie.
Exactly.
So, no, Beanie, I just wanted to get your take on how you think this may have affected the team, because obviously practice has been rolling. We've been getting snips from, you know, OSU's Twitter handle. They've been throwing out videos. I saw one of Dwayne Haskins throwing a dime to Austin Mack. So it looks like they're ready to go. But as far as a former player, the mentality of this, how you think it's affecting the guys?
You know what? With the coaches that Urban Meyer has in play, you know, obviously Ryan Day, Kevin Wilson, Greg Schiano, Brian Hartline. He has a lot of guys that understands his philosophies and how he does things. So honestly, I mean, outside of the fact that you don't have the head guy there yelling down your throat, I don't think that there was much of a drop-off with the head coach not being there, because everybody understands the expectation that is set at the Woody Hayes Athletic Facility and how they're supposed to practice.
And also, I think it's great that you have Greg Schiano there, you have Kevin Wilson there. Both these guys have run college programs. One of them is coaching an NFL team. Do you think that's definitely got to be helping them out, right?
I think so. And you look at the role that Greg Schiano specifically has on this team. I mean, he's not even really a specific position coach at this point after they brought in one more guy. So he can float around a little bit defensively. He can walk around the field and go from position group to position group if he needs to. What we saw from 2 practices, which is just a very limited sample, was a business-as-usual approach for them. And I think that it helps that you have guys that are professional and been around for a long time and know Urban Meyer's system. I think it might be different. You know, Matty, if you're talking about a game plan, if this had been next week or sometime in the middle of the season, you've got to run the meetings, you've got to run game day, you've got to go talk to the officials on a Saturday. Obviously, then it hurts to not have your head coach and a guy who carries that cachet that Urban Meyer does with 3 national title rings. But in terms of a training camp, you know, Beanie can attest to this much more than I can. You're trying to get through one practice to the next. You're trying to get through the next meeting. And if the position coaches are running that, I think you're probably going to be in pretty good shape.
And I think one of the things I think a lot of us all glossed over is look at the NFL guys that we have on our coaching staff.
Yeah.
Greg Schiano, Bill Davis.
Yes.
I mean, they are already taught next man up mentality. And I think the coaches had that trickle-down effect with the guys, understanding that, hey, Urban Meyer isn't here right now, but you still got to go out and do your job. Next man up, and let's be pros about this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of talent on this team. I don't think a lot of fans are expecting any football drop-off. Maybe there's a new head coach, but these guys should come out of the tunnel next week and be ready to rock. And the AP poll also thought so. I know we had the coaches poll come out a while ago. They were ranked 3rd. The AP poll came out yesterday, and they were ranked 5th. Wisconsin was ranked 4th on there. I know it was surprising. They were the highest-ranked team of the Big Ten teams in the top 25. Was it surprising to you guys at all that Wisconsin was ranked a spot above the Buckeyes? We're splitting hairs. It's one spot. But, with all the guys returning at Ohio State, I think some people were a little surprised that Wisconsin's getting a lot of love.
It might have been that first-place vote that Wisconsin got that really surprised me. I mean, to me, it's easy when you have that preseason poll. You put Alabama there number 1 and let people come chase you. And typically, I think the other thing that jumped out to me, Matty, these things tend to rely on the results from last year. Yep. The last time those two teams played each other in Indianapolis, Ohio State beat Wisconsin. So generally you tend to give the benefit of the doubt to the reigning champions. Maybe the voters here were a little bit influenced by uncertainty with Urban Meyer. They think that could be a distraction or a lasting impact. Can't really speak to their mindset, but enough guys thought that Wisconsin should have that slight edge. This is another example, maybe, Beanie, where guys in that locker room at the Woody are saying, hey, here's another chance. Ohio State is rarely ever, and you might know this better, you don't ever feel like an underdog at Ohio State, but this is, another potential chip that they could use as a motivating factor. Hey, we're more than Urban Meyer. We handled our business in training camp and throughout August, and now you think that Wisconsin, even though Ohio State owns that Big Ten trophy right now, you guys think Wisconsin's going to do that? Well, fine. We're going to go prove you wrong.
And as a player, I mean, you're like you just said, you're looking for something to have an extra amount of motivation to go into the football season. And this is just one of those things. Obviously, this is a team that you went out and you beat the past couple of years, and you can go and pound your chest. But now you look at the AP and where you guys where you're ranked, and you're like, oh, we're not maybe getting the respect that we deserve here. So let's go out and turn this thing up another notch.
Speaking of somebody in that locker room that may be feeling like they're not getting enough love, I think that's one J.K. Dobbins. And I bring this up because I saw today ESPN put out their All-American preseason team. It doesn't mean much, but the two running backs on the list were Bryce Love out of Stanford and obviously Jonathan Taylor up in Wisconsin. Both true freshmen last year. Both came in and just absolutely balled out for both their teams. Why do you think that he's getting a little bit more love than J.K. right now?
I think, when you look at Ohio State, you got to take into consideration that Mike Weber is going to be back. He's going to be healthy. Those two guys are going to split carries. You don't have a JT anymore, so you know that the run game is going to be divvied up between those guys heavily. I think that's probably one of the reasons. But, I don't think those guys that are making those All-American lists think that JK's any slouch, because when he gets an opportunity, the kid is going to deliver.
He can go.
It's interesting, too, to see him, kind of slipping with the Heisman odds. We can, give those stock or not give them stock, but Dwayne Haskins elevating over J.K. Dobbins on the team. It's just been kind of a weird month where people are getting really excited about the potential for Dwayne Haskins with good reason. Mm-hmm. People are getting excited about a lot of these other running backs with good reason. They're probably going to have, 50, 60, 100 more carries even than J.K. Dobbins. It's just, you're right. It's weird that he sort of slipped under these cracks this year after what he did last year as one of the very best players in the country as a true freshman. So, I don't know, Beanie, if that's another guy who gets a chip on his shoulder or if he's paying any attention to that. Because even if you went to like the AP All-American team, I think they listed 4 or 5 running backs. He wasn't even listed in the top 5.
Right.
I don't know if you read that stuff, if players do, if they get into it. But if it were me, I'd be paying attention, and I'd be pretty upset about it.
I'm going to tell you this right now. They absolutely pay attention to that. And like I just said, players are always looking for another reason to turn it up a notch, another reason to say, you know what, you're overlooking me, so I'm going to go out and prove you wrong. And this is just another one of those deals that JK can turn to.
I shouldn't have been so hesitant about it because Paris Campbell showed up for a hotel check-in day with a picture, a T-shirt with a picture of the tweet that said he wasn't one of the top 25 fastest players.
Yes.
Obviously, they're paying attention.
I'm here for all the pettiness. Any type of pettiness, I am here for in sports. I want to stay on the offensive side of the ball because you guys were talking about the 2 running backs, and everybody's expecting big things from those guys. No doubt about it. And Dwayne, but the wide receiver room and all of the veterans came back for another year, another crack at it. And emotionally, I'm sure, obviously, they're going through some things right now. But because of those veterans being there, what are you guys expecting from them? Because Paris and Terry and Johnny Dixon and KJ Hill's back. everybody's back. Are you guys expecting a leap up from the wide receiver squad this year?
I don't know how you spread around all the touches for these guys. I mean, we've talked about the rotation before. Brian Hartline, I've been really impressed with the work that he's done, those 2 practices that I mentioned that we got to see. He is as intense on the practice field as anybody that I've ever seen. And it might sound like hyperbole, but he's still got that athleticism, and he's young enough where he's still going through some of the drills, Beanie. He still looks like he could go, try and make a roster tomorrow. And that hands-on experience is very important for these guys. I mean, I think it can help them take that next step. But now he's got to manage it, right? It's not just those top 6 receivers that are back. Now you're throwing in C.J. Saunders. How does he fit in? Jalen Harris. You're taking a black stripe off Chris Olave's helmet this week. I mean, now we're talking 9, 10 guys.
Right.
I don't know how you manage that. That's actually going to be something that's worth watching here early in the season. Because all those other guys can go. Johnny Dixon's going to score you some touchdowns. Ben Victor's going to be a threat in the red zone. Paris Campbell needs it. KJ Hill, Terry McLaurin. I mean, I could keep going. That's just like it's crazy to think about all these guys that can have an impact and how you keep them involved.
I think, first and foremost, when you're at Ohio State, the guys that are going to be productive, the guys that are going to do things the right way, obviously in the classroom, it's going to have a trickle-down effect on the field. You're going to get an opportunity here. And some of the guys that we have on the roster, the playmakers, the Paris Campbells, the Terry McLaurin, the Benjamin Victor, who a guy we saw last year kind of make a little bit of a stride, he's going to be expected to make an even bigger stride this year. So some of those guys, I think, are going to get a lot more playing time. Brian Hartline, I think he'll dwindle this thing down. And I don't know if we'll see 8, 9-man rotation at the receivers. I think we're going to have a solidified group of guys that they're going to be their go-to guys on a week-to-week basis.
And the one I didn't even say, I forgot about Austin Mack. So
Mack attack, man. 11 a.m. a Mack attack. But I'm with you guys on the wide receivers because I really do think there's a ton of guys there, but I think there's a lot of talent there as well. So it's a good problem to have. But going to the quarterbacks, Dwayne, it's his squad right now. But we know if Urban Meyer's the head coach under Urban Meyer, the backup guy better be ready to roll because that RPO stuff sometimes puts your quarterbacks in danger. Tate Martell, highly touted recruit coming out of Vegas. He's got to be ready to rock. We saw him being able to dance around a little bit in the spring game. It looks like he'll be able to handle that. But his readiness, I mean, he's got to be on it and ready to go next Saturday in case something happens, right?
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I would have said late July that would be the one thing that I was most interested in seeing what would play out in August. Didn't really get a chance to do that, and that's figuring out if there's a special package for Tate Martell, how they're planning to incorporate him into this attack. If you want to gamble with the fact that Matthew Baldwin is still not 100% coming off that ACL that he injured at the end of his high school career, so you don't have any depth behind Dwayne Haskins really. I mean, there's not going to be any experience one way or the other. Dwayne Haskins hasn't started a game yet, so none of these guys have it. That is still a big question mark, no matter how highly we think of Dwayne Haskins, or if you saw, Troy Smith break that down this morning on Buck IQ, the tools that we've seen in the game and the win there. So, Tate Martell, you're right, Matty. He's going to have to be ready. We don't know exactly in what capacity they'll use him, how much. That's sort of been this big mystery with the blackout this month. We don't know. I wish we did because he's such a fascinating character, and we've all seen, especially in the spring game, kind of what he's just electrifying, it seems, at times when he's got the football in his hands.
I want to transition a little bit to the Buckeyes NFL because preseason's rolling a little bit. You got the Buckeyes down at Cincinnati with Billy Price and Sam Hubbard, but just guys that you're excited that, obviously played at Ohio State to watch in the NFL this year. I mean, for me personally, I'm going down to New Orleans because I think Michael Thomas, you can't guard him. I mean, we all know that. You can't guard that dude. But I think this will be another year for him to solidify that he is that dude. He is a #1 wide receiver. So for me, it's no doubt Michael Thomas because he's got a couple years under his belt. But I think some people are still waiting to see, is this Drew Brees helping him out or just Michael Thomas happen to think he's a beast? And I'm excited to see it.
I think it's a combination of those two. Yeah. I mean, Michael Thomas, we obviously know how good he is, how underutilized he was here at Ohio State. But when he got to the league, I mean, you see everything that he possesses. I mean, he's a big, strong, fast receiver. And when you couple with Drew Brees, I mean, big plays are going to happen. A guy I'm really worried about, not really worried about, or really excited to see is Zeke. I can't wait to see the Zeke bounce back this year. Obviously, we know how last year transpired with the suspension and all that. He's coming in with a chip on his shoulder, and he just watched his boy and Todd Gurley get a crazy contract.
Got the bag.
Put up amazing numbers last year.
Secured it.
He's going to be wanting to do the same thing.
Yeah, you mentioned Billy Price. Those guys down in Cincinnati, Sam Hubbard and Billy Price. Those were two of my favorite guys to cover. Curious to see how they transition. It sounds like there was one day maybe early in training camp where Billy had some rough days snapping the football. Then I saw a stat that he hadn't given up a pressure or anything, and like 29 snaps since then. So he's doing, it sounds like, pretty well in this preseason. I feel like he's a 10-year starter in the league. That's just Maybe it's because he treated me so well as for the media, but same thing with Pat Elflein the year before. So I'm not great at evaluating offensive linemen, but those two guys always seemed like pretty special ones. You go the other side of the state, Carlos Hyde with a chance a little bit to restart his career. How's that going to look like for Cleveland? And then you've got Denzel Ward trying to live up to, those really lofty expectations for a team that, we'll all be watching on Hard Knocks and try to see if they can turn it around up there.
Can't wait. I mean, it's big for Denzel Ward. They brought him in to be the #1 guy. And, in the AFC North, you got to see Antonio Brown and A.J. Green 4 times a year. So he'll get his money's worth. That's for sure. One more guy that I'm very intrigued by because I think there may be an opportunity for him after this year is Cardale. I mean, out there in L.A. with the Chargers. I mean, you've been reading a lot of stuff to where he's battling out with Geno Smith. I mean, we've kind of seen what Geno Smith is already throughout his career. But Cardale, you got Phillip Rivers deep into the back nine. I think he's going to have an opportunity to get in that position, possibly to be their franchise quarterback moving forward.
I can't even wrap my mind around Cardale not being able to beat out Geno Smith.
Yeah, me either.
I've always thought that Cardale had the physical tools to really shine at that next level, and it is always a matter of opportunity. The times that I've been around Cardale since he left, he seemed to be really locked into that NFL professional mindset, taking the workouts seriously. Just the way I always thought that he would. He showed that when he got the opportunity at the end of 2014. So, of course, you got to have the right opportunity, the right system, and all that. But, I mean, if Cardale can't beat out Geno Smith, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he certainly will beat out Geno. A guy that I'm really intrigued by. He's not on the roster right now, but this guy was a big-time playmaker here at Ohio State. Devin Smith.
Yeah.
What's going to come of him in his football future? Obviously, we know he had the knee issues. But I'll tell you what, if the guy can get back healthy, man, I'd be intrigued to see what he does on any football roster.
No, I mean, it's Buckeyes all over the league right now. I mean, you guys, every Sunday you see, the Buckeyes taking pictures together after the games and signing the jerseys and all that. One more thing before we get out of here today is Mike Vrabel. I mean, you got a Buckeye as a head coach in the NFL getting his first crack at it. He was down in Houston and H-Town coaching up the LBs and linebackers. I mean, he's got a pretty good team. He's got what they think is a franchise quarterback. It's a tough division, but I think Mike Vrabel is going to have a chance, man.
I think Vrabel is going to do a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he can get players motivated to go out and play and get players motivated to give a little bit more than they thought they had. A guy that I love, too, is Kerry Combs. Yeah. I'm watching him all the time, firing up with his DBs.
You hear him right now. You hear him yelling right now. You can hear him.
Exactly. I mean, his energy is through the roof. I love it.
It's a great combination, right? I mean, those two guys with their Ohio State ties, we've seen them up close and personal the way they work. If you can't get motivated to play for Mike Vrabel or Kerry Combs, probably should try something else.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, that's going to do it for the Lettermen Live here. I'm Matt Hayes from 97.1 The Fan. Of course, Lettermen Row, Austin Ward, Lettermen Row, and Beanie Wells, also a part of the squad. We'll be back throughout the season. Make sure you come to Lettermen Row to get all of your Buckeye coverage and more. Lettermen Row. We'll be back soon. Thanks for tuning in.